Hey guys, so you ready for today's March 2nd, 2020, 2:16 a.m. Central Time. So I had surgery on Friday. Didn't think it'd be as painful as it is. It's ridiculously painful. Oh my god, wish I would have prepared myself. So I'm up because of that. So I'm going to do a video for you guys. Most of my 2020 election footage, coverage, all that shit will be on Patreon, but I wanted to do this video for the public to see, let you guys know where things kind of stand, and also give you the link to this website because it is, I wouldn't say interactive, it updates as things progress. And regardless of whether you happen to like the website people or not and their predictions, it will actually show you outcomes. So Senate and House races. Let's talk about presidential real quick. Petey Poo dropped out yesterday late in the evening. Steyer dropped out. So who do we have left? We have Biden, Sanders, Bloomberg, Warren, Klobuchar. Gabbard is still in the race. I don't know why, but she is. And she's taking votes away from people, which is funny. Russian asset. Anyway, so those are the people left. Now, keeping in mind, out of all those people, if Sanders gets to the top of the ticket, which is why the Democratic establishment, Democratic Party in general, whatever you want to call it, is having a hissy fit, is because he's pretty close to, getting these delegates he needs. Because it's possible he could get the nominee. Now, I think he'll probably go to a brokered convention, period, and I think he won't get the nominee. But if he does, the down ballots for Senate and House will get destroyed. And I believe this country will absolutely not only reelect Trump, I think it could be tight, though, because he's got a crazy-ass base. I mean, he has a good base. It could be tight, but I think the Senate and House races will automatically go practically Republican because people will want to put a check on Sanders if he were to get in. And that's how you do it. You get Congress. And so, and you'd have to think about it. These House members, they got like 41 seats this last round in 2018. So a lot of them were in GOP districts, for one, and two, like 46 or something Republicans retired that cycle. So there's a lot of them that won in GOP. Donald Trump won districts, and they obviously do not share the values and the platform that Sanders is running on. So if Sanders gets to the top of the ticket, is the Democrat Party going to rally their horses together and get behind Sanders? I mean, these people would have to be like, yeah, I embrace socialism. I embrace Medicare for all and the Green New Deal and all these other ridiculous shit he wants to do that is not going to happen. It's not that they're ridiculous too, but it's not going to happen. Even if the Senate and the House went Democrat and he got in the White House, those policies will fail and never make it to actual law. Period. End of story. They are not just open promises, broken promises, what do they call it? Pie in the sky type shit. That's just like retard behavior to believe that any of that will ever happen in this country because we can't afford it. Period. The House couldn't appropriate the amount of money needed to run either program. Period. So it's ridiculous. These Sanders people are crazy asses. But it will affect the down ballot. And I believe that the United States public will absolutely head Republican if he becomes a nominee. So anyway, with that being said, let's move on. So this is Politico, regardless how you feel about their website, whatever. And these are their opinions, and then obviously, like I said, as things update, they will update with the facts. But they say, control the presidency is too close to call. The Senate leans in favor of Republicans. The House leans in favor of Democrats. Majority of the governors will be Republican. So here's the deal. I'm going to show you key races. So key races for the presidency. This makes me kind of sick because Arizona's in this group of 6. Toss-ups are Wisconsin, Arizona, Michigan, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Nebraska. Are all toss-up states. Again, Arizona makes me sick. What makes me even worse feeling sick, like throw up sick, is the Senate race in Arizona. That's a toss-up, and I'll go into that. So, key Senate races. Alabama for Doug Jones, leaning Republican, Georgia for David Perdue. Colorado is a toss-up for Cory Gardner. I'll go into these. North Carolina is a toss-up for Tom Tillis. Leaning Republican Senator from Maine, Susan Collins. And toss-up, Martha McSally. Here's the deal. Let's go to Arizona first because this makes me want to throw up. There is no way Arizona votes this guy in. If they do, I will write Arizona off like I've written California off. I mean, I've written California off way worse than New York and all these other little liberal states. I mean, I will hope that the fault in California for earthquake goes into Arizona's border and destroys Arizona at the same time if they decide to vote for this guy. Guess who's running against Martha McSally? Mark Kelly, the husband of former Representative Gabby Giffords. You heard me right. The retard that is a huge gun control advocate who went into a gun shop, okay, in Arizona to prove he could buy an AR-15 without a background check and fucking failed because everyone knows you need a background check for an FFL. He failed walking out without that AR-15 because he was crazy ass. That's the guy who's up against Martha McSally. And then he eventually did buy an AR-15 and then turned it into the cops. It was ridiculous. This guy's a nut job. If Arizona votes in Mark Kelly, I will throw up. Arizona's Maricopa County the other day passed a resolution, made me sick that they did what they did. They did a resolution saying they are, it's not the right term, I should have brought it up, not sanctuary, they didn't want to use the word sanctuary, for guns, okay? So that'd be a good thing, right? What made me sick about it is the fact that if truly Arizona was a Republican as strong as it was when I was a kid, then it would have had this provision. But they stripped this provision out of the resolution that made the only reason for that resolution to exist. And that was to prevent any funds from being used for gun control or advocacy of gun control or anything of that nature. They stripped that provision from that resolution. So that entire resolution basically just said, hey, we are a sanctuary for firearms. Again, sanctuary, not the right term. That made me sick that happened. So anyway, Doug Jones, Alabama, leaning Republican. I think he'll be fine. Leaning Republican David Perdue begins his first re-election, especially against a muddled Democratic field with no clear frontrunners. So obviously they don't have, have to move. Ow! Holy fuck, that hurt. So obviously he doesn't even have a good Democrat going against him. He'll probably keep his seat. Cory Gardner, I am concerned about. I do like Cory Gardner quite a bit. He is a Republican. Colorado has turned very much purple. Their policies and everything else they've done, I mean, legalizing shrooms and shit, I mean, it's just ridiculous. So they've really turned liberal policy-wise, and I wouldn't be surprised if Cory lost his seat. End of story. North Carolina, Tom Tillis, I watch the Senate far more than I do the House in general because it's just easier to track. Tom Tillis says facing a self-funded primary challenger is embracing President Trump after getting crosswise with the president over Trump's emergency declaration to build a wall along the southern border. Cal Cunningham, a former state legislator, is backed by the Democrat Senatorial campaign committee, but hasn't declared the primary field. So it doesn't even sound like he may even have a challenger. But regardless, Tom Tillis is not a huge voice, if you will, in the Senate. So I do not know how well he is received in North Carolina. So with that being said, it's possible it could be a toss-up. Now, Maine, also interesting race. Susan Collins. She has been shit on by both parties because, one, during the impeachment trial, she voted for witnesses, okay? It was obviously a political move, and it wasn't going to pass. She knew it wasn't going to pass and go through. She voted for it because she needed to vote for it for her political career, okay? Now, so she got shit on by the right for that. Then she got shit on by the left, okay, for when she voted for Kavanaugh. And that was a much bigger case, obviously, to be voting for Kavanaugh than the whole, political move in the Senate for witnesses in the impeachment trial. So she got death threats to death. She's still getting death threats. I mean, this poor woman has been through a lot. So Maine seems very split. Obviously, it says for this seat, it's been Republican. For president, they've always voted Democrat. So it's a very, very, very split state. Susan could lose her seat. It says that won't be the case in 2020 with the state House Speaker Sarah Gideon prepared a strong bid with the state's blue tint. Collins likely will need crossover votes in order to win a fifth term, hence her move in the Senate. So, and since it's a Speaker of the House, Sarah Gideon, it's of, their congressional, it's possible she really could. I mean, this would be her fifth term, so they may want to kick her ass out of office. So anyway, House key races. We got 6 of go into that in a second. Governor races, really easy. Montana governor, North Carolina, and Missouri. Montana, don't know much about, but I'm pretty sure that they will go Republican in general. There's some other key races for them. I think they'll head Republican. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, outperformed his party's presidential and Senate nominees in 2016 to win narrowly victory. Expect all 3 races to be close again in the swing state. So, who knows? I don't know much about Roy Cooper or North Carolina's state shit. Missouri, obviously I'm in Missouri. Mark Parson became governor in 2018 after Eric Greitens resigned. I hated Greitens. I actually wrote myself in for governor last cycle because I could not stand the fact that motherfucker was running and he was going to win anyway, and we all knew it. I just couldn't stand him. And then obviously he had some shit come up and scandals and he resigned and Mike Parson came into play, and I like Mark. Excuse me, I just said Mark. That guy's on my mind. Fucking Kelly. Anyway, Mike Parson. I like Mike Parson. And it should be interesting because I have not seen any, and granted I don't watch too much TV, but I have not seen any type of commercials for anything yet regarding Missouri. So hopefully I think Missouri will stay Republican. Really don't see it will be going to Democrats any day soon, but whatever. Lean Democrat is Texas. Lean Republican, House, Iowa. These are all districts. Toss-up in Minnesota. Alaska is likely Republican. Toss-up in Maine. And toss-up in New York District 22. And I'm really surprised they don't have AOC, Ridiculous Retard, district up here because her challenger actually is pretty strong. I'm not sure how well received her challenger is in that district. But she seems to be pretty well established. And since AOC seems to be pissing off her constituents as well, it's possible she could lose her seat. And get this is even better. In 2020, we have the census. So when they redraw the maps, okay, for all of what the hell do they call it? It's early in the morning. They call it, people who rig the maps, gerrymandering. They are actually thinking about, and it's not been said publicly, but it's a possibility. The Democrats could redistrict her out so that her seat doesn't even exist when they redraw the lines, which would be basically gerrymandering. But they could literally draw the lines so her district seat disappears and those other people go into a different district or whatever happens. That would be fucking priceless. So she would have to run into a different district and see how well she does. That woman is a nut job. I mean, seriously, there's just problems in her head. But anyway, says, we think Republicans are in good position to hold the Senate in 2020. Democrats need to net 3 Senate seats to win back the presidency in order to control the chamber after inaugural day 2021. But that will be difficult hold in Alabama. Democrats face hurdles to put enough seats in play to mount a serious challenge for majority. There are a lot of seats up in the Senate, so it's very possible. You never know. Democrats have fortified their House majority with strong fundraising and a new congressional map in North Carolina. That's what it is, congressional lines, which could net the party 2 additional seats. So we'll see how well that goes. And then governors, again, they think... it says, we rated the gubernatorial races in 2020. Here's what we think. Blah, blah, blah. They said that most of them will end up being Republican is what they seem to think. And what they say in the presidency. President Donald Trump can afford to lose 36 electoral votes from his 2016 victory and will still win re-election. But he's been hobbled by low job approval ratings throughout his presidency and shown little ability to expand his appeal. That, I mean, whatever, you know, I understand people don't necessarily like Trump's attitude and his Twitter feed and shit he says, shit he does, whatever, you know, on a personal aspect, how he talks about the press, how he talks to the press. I think he's so fucking far out there when he talks to the press. I mean, he is just entertaining as fuck. But I mean, that's where he came from. He came from Hollywood. What do you expect? And he's in his 70s. What, he's 73 or something? He's set in his ways. He's an old man. I mean, you're not gonna fucking change him. He's not moldable at all. Period. And we figured that out real quick. I mean, he went in and did not change how he was. He's kind of like the Sanders version, if you will, because Sanders is set and he's not going to change his ways either. So, I mean, what you see is what you get with those 2 candidates. But yeah, I mean, but as far as Trump's policies go, I mean, he rolled back regulations, he did tax cut, regardless how you feel about that. It affected me. I'm not a millionaire or billionaire. It'd be nice if I was, but I'm not. He passed legislation for all kinds of things on both sides of the aisle that they'd like the First Step Act. He's building the border, regardless how you feel about that. A lot of stuff's getting skewed as far as like what has happened in prior administrations that he carried on, like the kids in cages. He didn't build, Obama did, and he just happened to be using them. And it's not like it's an unsafe area. And I mean, there's just so many different aspects of the Trump administration of what he's been able to achieve and accomplish. It's crazy. And with this coronavirus shit killing the market, not surprising by any means, because it has, in my opinion, it has nothing to do with the coronavirus coming here as a concern for the market. The market is terrified because China shut its borders down, basically. And we shut our borders down from China, okay? A lot of product for a lot of things come from China. And so things are going to be held up in production. You know, Apple's already opening up their factory, but I mean, that says a lot. They closed their motherfucking factory for a while, so it's going to hit a lot of bottom lines. Starbucks, all those people who close their shit in China. So those are automatically hit. So, of course, people are going to freak out about that. But when it comes to a global market, China's a huge, huge competitor when it comes to goods. And when you cut off that supply line, things start to get scary. And that's exactly why they're scared. We're cutting stuff from Italy, South Korea, Iran, who cares? But I mean, is the more people get infected and the more travel restrictions we have, or even start shutting down shit coming in and out of this country, people and product wise from other countries. Yes, it's a scary situation. Period. End of story. That is business. And businesses are scared. And guess what? Some of my product for my business comes from China too. Kind of irritated, kind of pissed off about it. Luckily have plenty of supply at the moment, but it could easily run out. So that's kind of irritating too. And unfortunately, I'm dependent on China for specific goods because they're the only ones who actually make the product. Period. And that's exactly how we are dependent, and everybody else is dependent on China, because we've made it so those people are the only place for certain fucking products that we have to use in this country, which is exactly why it's ironic that Trump started this trade war, because he made a lot of shit come here, meaning startup, whatever you want to call it. The America First policy, having factory jobs open up, the steel industry, all those things that we were getting from China have begun here in the United States because of that trade war. So a lot of things are getting made here in the United States that weren't in 2016, that were coming from China. So when that trade war happened, he did that. So luckily, we're not 100% dependent on China, because Trump happened to start that trade war and he brought jobs back here that had to do with factory work. So ironic, hilarious in certain ways too. So Trump's been an interesting character. I will absolutely be voting for him. I will be voting Republican up and down the ticket. Honestly, I don't give a fuck if I hear a Democrat in the state of Missouri that sounds decent compared to maybe a ridiculous Republican who's like extreme. I don't care. I will vote Republican. The Democrats are so fucking crazy. Nutty. The fact they are willing to supposedly rally behind whoever the nominee is, and that nominee can be Sanders, all of you can kiss my ass. All of you. Anyway, this is Are You Ready For It? Take care, guys. Have a great morning.